In this tutorial, we're going to change the look of our sprite, move it to a specific position, and then leave an imprint of the current costume. The first thing I want to do is simply to edit my costumes. To do that, I click on the Costumes tab, and I click the Edit button right next to the costume I want to change, and I want to make a square. So to do that, I'm going to select the Rectangle tool, and then I am going to hold down the Shift key and drag across the screen as I'm holding down the Shift key. This makes sure that I don't create a rectangle, but that I actually get a square. It has equal height and equal width. If you want to shrink your costume a bit, then you can use the shrink button up here. And that's simply, we're going to make it about just so big. And then I want to change the color of the square. And to do this, I'm going to use the bucket tool or the fill tool and make sure it's selected. Then select the color that you want to change to, in this case, red. And as you can see here, this is the color that it's going to turn out to be. So next, make sure that the fill tool is selected, and I just simply click inside the square, and there you go. Now it's red. Now next thing is that we're going to delete the second costume, and then we're going to create a copy of it. And I'm going to go in and edit, and I'm going to select the fill tool again and change the color to green and click inside the square, and now that costume is going to be a green square. So there you go. And just to make it easier to remember which costume is which, I'm going to rename them. I'm going to call the first one red and the second one green. We now go into scripts, and I need to select a activation control. In this case, I'm going to use the when flag clicked block. And I want to make sure that my screen is going to be cleared of any effects before I start. This is done using the clear block under pen. And I'm going to move my sprite, and I'm going to move it to a very specific position. So I'm going to move the go to XY block, and I want my sprite to be in about this position. And you're gonna have to experiment a little bit with this, but essentially this is done by changing the values of the X and Y in this block. So this is the X coordinate or X dimension, and this is the Y dimension. Now I'm going to change X to about, let's say, I'm going to set it to the value of -100, and I'm going to set the Y value to 100. And then I want to make sure that I have the right costume. I want it to be red to start off with. So I go into looks, and I use the switch to costume block. I'm going to place it right after the clear block, and then I'm going to click over here. The little arrow pops up the costumes that I have for this specific sprite, and I'm going to select the red one. Now I want to leave an imprint of my sprite and its current costume. So what I'm going to do is under the pen controls, there is one called stamp. attach that one. Then, once I've done that, I want to wait just a little bit. So I'm going to use the wait block under control. And I will wait for 2 seconds. Once it's 2 seconds have elapsed, I want the costume to switch again. So under looks, I switch to costume. And in this case, I want to use the green one. And then I'm going to move it, but I'm not going to move it to a specific position. I'm going to move it relative to where it currently is. To do this, you can use the change x by block. And the value here is going to determine how much the sprite moves in this direction. And I'm going to change it by, say, 40, right? And once it's changed its position, I want it to leave another imprint. So I use the pen tool again. And there we stamp it, right? So let's execute this and see what happens. What should happen is that when I click the green flag, it should clear the screen, switch to the red costume, and then go to this specific position. Leave a stamp of the current costume of the sprite, wait for 2 seconds, and switch the costume to green. Then it should move over in the X dimension by 40 units and leave another stamp. So let's execute it and see what happens. There you go. Using a similar sequence of blocks, you can create patterns. You can create patterns in this direction, in this direction, and if you want to move your sprite in the Y direction, under motion, you'll find just like there is a change X by, there is also a change Y by. That's it.